Come on, Taylor.
Dyl, how are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Honour to have you in the studio. Absolute honour.
What am I doing here? I've got no idea why I'm here.
This is so good.
I remember you vaguely,
Yeah.
Ivanhoe Grammar Boy, and
Yes.
of course my kids all went to Assumption.
Yep.
And I remember, the thing I remember about you is the childhood prodigy, you know, with Jimmy and all that sort of thing, but you were always wrapped in cotton wool. You never played.
Yeah.
Every time we played Assumption, Dylan Buckley, late scratching,
Well,
cotton wool, doesn't want to play.
No, not at all. Do you know,
No, that's
there was
true.
a day, what's that oval called up at Assumption?
Well, it's called the Oval.
Is that called the Oval, is it? Is there a name for it?
There is a name for it.
I think they renamed it the Dylan Buckley Oval because I literally tore it to shreds one day when I was up there. It was
Well,
unbelievable.
it's funny, I never saw you play
Yeah.
up there. You were always a late withdrawal, but anyway.
Actually, funny story, it isn't so funny. My last game I played for school footy was against Assumption at Ivanhoe. And in the first quarter, I had this bloke come behind me, push me in the back in midair. And you know what it's like being a big key forward. When you get pushed in the midair, you lose your balance.
Are you a big key forward?
I
mate?
was that day. And I came down, broke my ankle both sides. Like just went bang, bang. It was pretty much the demise from there. Never quite got back to that side.
What was it like on your school footy? What was that like playing, particularly year 12? Was it the absolute year where you sorted out your friends and who they were and stuff?
I loved school footy, and I think I lived in that moment of going like, I'm never going to play with mates again, like my mates, because being at Ivanhoe, you'd know this. Assumption, incredible football school, footy factory, as you'd say. They're your words, not mine. Ivanhoe was quite the opposite. Like no scholarships given out.
Don't care about footy.
Don't care about footy. I was the only player in my team that played TAC Cup, so they were literally just my mates that played footy. If you were just a friends, you'd play the game. So I loved it, but definitely some of the fondest memories.
Good days.
You grew up in Mandurah.
I did. So I went to a very different schooling and education. So I was at Pinjarra High, and that was like, you know, outback sort of school, you know, 400 kids, you know, had a fight every playtime and recess time, and someone wanted to fight you. And, you know, I remember this guy, Scott Bell, his name was. I don't know what the hell he's doing now. His dad was a brickie and the family were tough, and, you know, you'd get out at recess and he challenged to fight you because, you know, you were assuming a little bit of, you know, people starting to like you because of whatever. And so he'd want to knock you down a bit. Righto, get the troops out, and everyone would form a ring around you at recess and you'd punch the shit out of each other and away you go. It was funny. I reckon I had over my career at school, I reckon I had about 10 fights over the period. Yeah, it was weird. Like you wouldn't see a fight in the playground now.
It doesn't happen these days.
No,
Not
it
at
was
all.
big. It was big. It was a huge school event. Somehow the teachers never knew that there was a fight on the bottom oval, you know. And
Do you think that's like, even on that, I don't want to get into like back in my day, but like, do you think that's a good thing that there's no fights anymore? Do you think it teaches you something? Because I think like, I look back now going to the train station used to be the spot where I was like genuinely scared to go to. And I used to go, fuck, I don't want to go to the train station. I don't want to go. And my old man used to say, you fucking go to the train station. Like you have to go. Don't avoid like conflict. And now I look back and go, I'm fucking glad I just manned up and went, like, and didn't, you know, nothing even happened, but I just rocked up and didn't shirk it.
yeah, I think the resilience thing, I think, you know, that's what it teaches you to get back up and to go again. And I look at all of my kids and I think if I could put one thing into them, it would be resilience. And to, you know, get a knockback at when you go for a job or whatever it is, you know, go again, just keep going and don't be disheartened by it. So I just think that is one of many, many ingredients along the way in my era where you're able to build that resilience, which is, I think, something fundamentally that is lacked in society today.
Moving from WA to Victoria, again, resilience building. Like back then, no sort of like social media, no following.
Yeah.
You had to move it. How old were you when you moved over?
I was 16, so it was a really big deal. You've just been through that yourself, and many others in the football world have been through it. So, you know, shifting from a country town in Western Australia, had never really left the state other than national championships in Adelaide the previous year. You know, leave all my friends who just meant everything to me. You know, my family, my youngest sister had just been born when I left, so I never really, other than I think she was maybe 1 or 2 when I left, so I never really knew my younger sister, and it's been sort of catch-up time ever since. So to leave all that behind, to go to this foreign country called Victoria was a bloody weird thing, and then to be billeted out with an elderly lady in South Yarra in Hawkesburn. I arrived on a Friday. I was at work on Monday as a plumber in Paran. I remember my very first job when I arrived at 7 a.m. and this guy was a tough cookie, you know, Bob Gill his name was, and he was a racing car driver and a plumber and a former Richmond reserves player, and he was just tough. And he said, jump in that car there with that guy. You're off at 7 a.m. You're off to do a sewerage blockage in St Kilda Road. And I went down to St Kilda Road with this guy I'd never met before, and you know, it was just, you know, getting lighter, and there were all these coloured lights in this big block of red flats in St Kilda Road, and I'm thinking, Jesus, there's been a party on here. This is incredible. We're going to the party. You know, it's just finishing. There's all these women sort of leaving, and I'm thinking, Jesus, they're scantily dressed. I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? And I'd never heard of a massage parlour before. This is a block of 50 massage parlours, and there was a sewer blockage there, right? And they took me out to the pit out the back in the car park. It was not the patrons' car park, but the workers' car park, and all the workers are leaving at this time of the morning, 7 in the morning, 7:15, and he said, get down that shaft there. The shaft was about 15 foot deep. Climb down the ladder into the shaft. He said, shove the sewer router up the pipe, and when you hear the gurgling, get the hell out of there because it's going to. Anyway, I didn't get out. I didn't realise it was going to flood so quickly, and I was up to my neck in the night's takings. And he hosed me off, refused to take me back to work in the car. He said, there's a taxi. You go back to work in the taxi. So that was my very first job as a 16-year-old kid out of country Western Australia, never left the state, and here I am bathing in this absolute sewage.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, That's
a fair induction
weird.
into moving.
It was scary, you know. Like I'd never been. I come straight from school. I didn't even finish year 12, and so to be in the workforce like 3 days after you arrive in a strange place and living with strange people was bloody weird.
Forgive me for this as well. This is very stupid question, but how are you communicating back home at that stage? Is it just like landlines? Or
Yeah, just landlines. So no mobile phones at that stage, hadn't been invented. So it was all landlines. And I remember Noel Judkins, who recruited me. You may remember him. He's a great recruiter for Richmond, Essendon, and I think he went on to Collingwood as well. And he recruited me, and I used to go to his office. Every time I'd go to training, I'd go to his office. I'd spend an hour on the phone back to Western Australia because I knew it was costing an absolute fortune. And I remember him telling me at one stage his bill was about $9,000. It was about $6,000 more than it should be. And that was probably me on the phone because I had a girlfriend back in Western Australia as well. And, you know, it was full on, yeah.
Far out. What's the memories of first getting to Richmond Footy Club per se as a player? Like, what was it like walking down the rooms at that stage? Because it was a good team. Yeah,
good team. Come off a couple of really good eras, and they were very, very well known. Like Kevin Sheedy picked me up at the airport. The day I arrived, Here's this guy. Because in Western Australia, all we knew about football over here was what we saw on The Winners, which was a program on the ABC, an hour's highlights basically of the VFL. And it was just, everywhere you looked, it was just greatness. And you go, you know, there were all these incredible players. And Kevin Sheedy was a 250-game player, 4-time premiership player at that stage. Like you go, wow. And then he's at the airport to pick you up. And I'm jumping in the car with Kevin Sheedy. And I'm going for my first night to live with Kevin Sheedy. This is bizarre. This great guy that I've seen on TV. And you know how you're influenced by those people that you see on TV. And it was just an absolutely amazing start. And the thing I probably remember most about Richmond is everyone that walked in the door was a great name that you knew. There was someone famous each way you looked. And I think the togetherness of the place, they had a lot of past players that used to come down. They had this guy called Graham Richmond who was like the administrator, power broker, hatchet man, also cut your head off as quick as look at you. So it was a great place to be amongst a lot of very, very tough and seasoned campaigners.
How would you, for someone who didn't see you play live at the game in the flesh, how would you describe yourself as a player?
I was just there to make up the numbers, really. Probably.
That's not true.
I had a slow start, and you know, I was a good junior player in Western Australia, but I never knew whether I could play at this level. So there was always that question mark. I guess others thought I probably could, but yeah, it was. You know,
you're a leading goal kicker 2 years in a row.
Yeah, but bringing young kids in. 16-year-old kids into a footy club was a strange thing back there.
Yeah.
Particularly, the only other 16-year-old that had ever left the state of Western Australia was the guy by the name of Steve McCann, who played for North Melbourne, played in a couple of premierships there. He and I were the only two at that stage that had left Western Australia as such young kids. Every other person that come to play in the VFL was a seasoned waffle performer or sandful performer. So it was a little bit different to have a young kid and they weren't quite sure whether he was going to develop into what they thought he would be. It was a huge risk for him.
Yeah, well, the six. So there's Tim Watson. Obviously, was the youngest I think to ever play. But back then, like there was always sort of young kids playing around. Which to think now that me at 16 running around with seasoned veteran, it's just silly to think that could even happen.
Why is the limit 18? I don't quite get.
Would you think it should be lower as well?
Well, I just think everyone matures at different ages.
Yeah.
And so some kids, like Tim Watson, was ready to play when he was 16.
Yeah.
Some kids aren't ready to play until they're 21. So I just wonder why we have this cut-off age. I wonder why we don't take them when they're ready to play.
I think there should be definitely like academies. I feel there's players that were better players at like 17 than they were at 18 and 19.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how
True.
it works.
And it is, because you're always at footy clubs and junior footy clubs, and there might be this young kid that's an absolute gun, and the parents think, naturally they think, he should go on and play at the very top level because he's now the best player in this kid's team here. He's the best player in the competition, but he's already matured. Yeah. He's already playing the best he can. There's no improvement. There's no improvement left. I've always amazed by recruiters how they know what improvement's left.
I don't think they do.
I think they guess too.
I reckon it's a massive guess. I think, without being offensive to like recruiters, I think it's the biggest load
of bullshit you've ever.
Yeah,
I
agree. It really is.
No, I agree. I would agree with that. I would say that recruiters, I reckon 70% of their work is guesswork.
It's already done for you, really. The last picks are the ones that are hard to get. But like you say, for example, a player that is already developed and they come through. That was the tag that Luke Parker got. He was absolutely, and still to this day, one of the game's best players at the moment. You'd say he's in that era. He got picked at pick 40 because they thought he's already capped. He's not going to be any better. And all these other guys, the athletic guys, come through in front of him. So it's all coming around. It's still coming. Yeah. It's
so
really
even if you think you're playing the best at junior level, that could be good enough to play.
Definitely now. I feel like now we're getting to a stage where actual footballers are getting picked up again. Like you look at Jai Newcomb from the VFL, like from Hawthorn. Like he wasn't getting a game because they probably thought he was capped. Yeah. But he's come in now. He's probably going to be in the rising star. Yeah. No, that's a good sign. And this whole evolution of football does this all the time. You've only probably seen one or two evolutions so far, but this has been going on for 50 years where, for one decade it's, we've got to have the athlete. Yeah. For the next decade, we've got to have the IQ, and it just keeps going around in circles and they keep tripping over and saying, try and reinvent the wheel. It's all been done. Yeah, it's good that we've debunked that today.
Bloody recruiters and that. They're overpaid. They're absolute wankers, I reckon. They really are.
No, there's plenty of good ones out there, definitely. Hey, so 1982, playing some good footy, the leading goal kicker, and don't get picked for the grand final team. How hard was that?
Yeah, that was probably a bit of a low light. But playing at Richmond, you just thought you were going to play in a grand final every second year, so it didn't matter.
How old were you at that time?
82, I would have been 19, I reckon.
Yeah.
So,
and at that time as well, you think, I've 19, I've got so long left.
Yeah.
Playing another one.
You've got so long left, and Richmond always play in grand finals, so don't worry, there'll be another one. Well, guess what? After 1982, the next one was 2017. So, it was quite bizarre. I remember I got hurt in the last game of the year, hurt my knee, and Steve Peary, our then full-back, also got hurt in the last game of the year. So the full-back and full-forward, both out for the first final, which we won. And then because we went straight into the grand final, we had the week off before the grand final. They played a practice match at Punt Road against each other. And to prove myself, I had to play in that practice match. And I did. And I kicked some goals against the guy that was going to be the fullback and thought, I'll be right, given the fact that I had such a good year and proved my fitness. And didn't get picked. There was obviously something there they thought that was not right in terms of my medical situation.
What was the injury?
I had a knee injury. It ended up being a posterior cruciate issue that I had. So I missed out because of that. My parents had flown over. In those days, secrecy around football. This is the other big thing in football. Everything's a fucking secret. Everything is a secret. Like, why? Why is football so secretive? Why is Damien Hardwick so secretive about the ins and outs of the Richmond football? IP. What is IP? Give me a break. What is wrong with these people? Everyone in the world knows what's going on. And I just think, like, when Lee Matthews was our coach at Collingwood, you weren't allowed to speak or say anything to anyone. And he would say, if you have to speak to the media, tell them lies. Never tell them the truth. And so that's the way we were brought up, and that's the way. And I'm still yet to work out
I can't work
why. Why can't I tell the truth to the media that I'm struggling with my game at the moment and I hope to get back on track soon? Why is that such a big blow?
But haven't we seen as well when people do it, we end up loving them because they're authentic, where it's actually the real person. You see, like someone I think worked out the media, and not say worked out, but just did something with himself, and I love them for it, is Nathan Buckley.
Yeah.
Towards the end of his career. Like he went from probably what you were saying, like not hating the media. I can't speak for him because I don't know his story, but he went to someone that was a bit standoffish to then just being like open, honest, and just told what he thought.
Yeah.
You can win people over quickly if you're just open and honest. It's because it's so far and few between in our game.
I'm always amazed by the secrecy surrounding football. I'm never quite sure it's a game. It's not, intelligence gathering for, defence of Australia. It's football.
Yeah.
And, that player plays on that player, and in the end, nothing else matters.
We used to have injury update, and it was like, just say a player would miss with a hamstring. They'd put down they're missing with a calf.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why. That is relevant at all. It actually makes no sense that they're missing with a hamstring or a calf.
The old famous one about, got the left shoulder injury, but they taped the right shoulder.
That was actually smart, though. I didn't mind that one for Lin John. Yeah. Hey, I want to fast forward because there's so much to get through in your story. How did you find transition out of football?
I found it really easy because I knew where I wanted to go. I was a plumber in the time that I played footy. And I, as a result, knew what I wanted to do. And in this world of secrecy, it was strange because I had to prove to people in the media world that I could, number one, talk and communicate and would be okay for whatever program they saw me on. So whenever there was an interview offered in a footy club, I would always put up my hands, which a lot of the teammates looked at me and thought I was a bit of a dick for doing that. And the coaches certainly looked and said, well, hang on, we don't want him to say anything. Why is he speaking to the media? But I had to prove that I could do this. So I accepted every invitation there was to be involved in the media so that I could prove that I could handle that situation because that's what I wanted to do for a job. So I reckon I realised that about 2 or 3 years before the end of my career.
Yep.
And so started accepting these invitations to do these things. And being a full forward at the time, you got a lot of them because that was one of the main focuses of each team was the full forward. So I had a lot of opportunities, and I got no doubt because I didn't have a great career. I only played a few games of footy, and I hadn't won a Brownlow or a premiership or any of those little trinkets that help you get into these positions. I had to get there on the basis that I could actually do the job.
Yeah, and that's what I think I love about your sort of journey outside of footy from media. I must admit, I didn't know this till we did the podcast and started doing a bit of research. But it wasn't really like you finish footy, here's your ticket, like one-way ticket to the media calling, the commentary. It was like a roller coaster of you had to really prove yourself. You're doing basketball, so at some stage, you're doing some Eastern Footy League commentary stuff. Like, talk us through how hard it was to actually sort of get in, how much work you had to do to actually get to where you were.
First of all, you had to get on the radio or the TV and in any show. So before you even thought about being a commentator, that was the first step to actually get in the door. And I did this program with Sam Kerkovich, Adrian Gallagher, and there was one other, I forget, excuse me for that, but it was 5:30 on a Saturday morning, live. Wow. It was called The Good, The Bad and The Ugly. It was on 3UZ. And it was just got, a bunch of guys talking crap. And so I got invited to do that. The trouble was I was still playing and it was 5:30 on Saturday morning, game day. And I thought, oh, shit, how am I going to... So I went to the club and I went and said, look, I've got to do this. But, it's pre-recorded the day before and they just played at 5:30 on... It wasn't pre-recorded. I was getting up and doing it live, so I told a little bit of a lie there. But that was the first way in, and then to prove that you could talk on those shows. And I had this incredible young producer who's now the head of Fox Cricket, Matty Weiss. Mm-hmm. And his dad was the doctor at Richmond. That's how I knew him. And I said, Matty, would you like to come and produce my show? Because I'd, got my own show at 3UZ, but it was on every morning at 5:30 before Leon Wiggert's show. And so what Matty worked out was, as a young kid, that worked perfectly with the US Times for athletes over there. So he went and he would make it his target, he'd get one per week. He'd go and get Carl Lewis when he was absolutely the hottest athlete in the world. He would go and get Charlie Francis, the coach of Ben Johnson, who put the drugs in and won the 100 at the Olympic Games. he would go and get Flojo, the best female sprinter in the world. He'd go and get Evander Holyfield, the world heavyweight champion, or George Foreman, the other world heavyweight champion. He'd go and get all these incredible athletes. And people were wondering what the hell was going on, but he was just so persistent, and he had ways of getting him. In the end, everyone heard about it, including Bruce McAvaney, and basically Matty became Bruce McAvaney's right-hand man for the next 20 years as a result of his efforts on my show to get these people. So that was the sort of start. Then I worked with community radio. So Collingwood, no one would probably remember this, not even Collingwood supporters, but they were broadcast on this community radio station. I think it was called 3CR, or I may be wrong, it may have been another community radio station. Worked with Harry Beitzel, the great Harry Beitzel, who was one of the great commentators in the history of our game. And we just did Collingwood games. And I don't think there was anyone listening. Might have been 100 people listening, I reckon. But what a great opportunity that was to make mistakes and get it wrong, and no one really hear you, so you weren't out the door. And I also worked on a university radio station, 6NR over in Western Australia, Curtin University. Once again, it was for when West Coast were playing over here. Their games would be broadcast back to this university radio station. No one would be listening, maybe 500 people max. So I had a great opportunity. And one day I was a special comments guy, and the commentator said to me, he said, "Would you like to have a call?" I said, "What, now?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Just do little tiny bits and I'll guide you through it." In the middle of the game, I'm all of a sudden go from special comments to calling the game. It was like absolutely fantastic. And his advice was so good, and I would give this advice to any commentator: just do a 20-second little call and you won't get tongue-tied and you won't get in a spot where you can't get out of. And that was the way that I learnt. That was where I started. And I guess my big opportunity came a couple of years after I retired, when Triple M was formed, and they were putting together a team, and I was a foundation member of that team, along with Eddie Maguire and Steve Quartermain and David Rees-Jones, and Ricky Nixon was involved, and a host of others. And that's where I got the opportunity. But it still took 10 years at the Triple M level for anyone to recognise that I could call footy, and for anyone to recognise that I was any good at all. And that was amazing, because I was working alongside two guys that were already cemented in the minds of many people that were listening, in Quartermain and Eddie Maguire. So it was always going to be hard to bust the door down when they were in front of it.
I really love what you said about, like, it took 10 years, because we spoke to Howie a while ago, and he was saying the exact same thing around how much work he had to put in behind the scenes. He was like carrying cables, like slowly get this time to make his call. But in saying that, it was the best thing that ever happened, because when he got his opportunity, he was ready to take it. And I think, like, we can get caught up, and especially younger people now, like, I was in this boat too. You want everything straight away. Like, you want to come in, you want to be the person, you want to be calling. But without all that experience, if you get in there and you fuck it up, you're done.
Well, look at you. You're the boss of this podcast. You don't answer to anyone. You're young.
No.
I mean, what is...
But I actually started this so I couldn't get on radio. And it was nearly the point where I was doing this as practice, and it was exactly what you would do. Like, I couldn't get on any radio stations, couldn't do anything. And I was like, well, fuck, I'll just start a podcast and practice, use it as like almost like a little resume, so that if it ever came calling, I could do it. But 150 eps later, it has just been practice, and it's
and that's the same with the footy. Like, the 10 years that I had, I reckon as a commentator, you need 10 years. This is why I'm amazed, because there's been people come in recently to our game that have called no games outside. They're just straight into and I go, hang on a minute, I think you need 10 years, because what it is, it's about building the vocab, the footy vocab. In a game of footy, the same thing happens all the time. Someone kicks it, someone handballs it, someone marks it. How can you best describe those three skills in a multitude of different ways and make it sound interesting? And that's the key. And I reckon you only get that, the really good commentators only get that from time in the game, where they build their repertoire and their footy vocab, their slang, to a point where they can pull out stuff that they don't use all the time, and therefore they don't become boring. And nothing shits me more than when I hear other young commentators using other commentators' lines and phrases. It's a really weird thing when you hear that, and I think, Jesus, that's just because that person hasn't done the apprenticeship, hasn't done enough to form their own vocab in football. It's a really important part of it.
Who did you learn most from? Like, who sort of took you under their wing, or who was someone that not even you were just there and going, fuck, I can learn a lot from this person?
Probably Eddie Maguire was probably there was a guy by the name of Smokey Dawson, a really old fella, who taught me the A, B's and C's of football calling. Yeah. The 3 W's on radio was really appropriate. Where is it, who's got it, and what's the score? If you repeat those 3 things continuously, people will always listen because that's all they want in the end.
Yeah, right.
And so that always stood in my mind. There was another guy by the name of George Grilicic out of Western Australia in the Waffle over there, who was an absolute superstar at calling whatever sport it was, and he was a big help as well. I've had lots of help from the best people along the way. McAvaney, towards the end of my career, but in the television side of things, wow, what a great person and coach he is. He actually prefers. This is the opposite to commentators because we're all very selfish. He actually prefers that you call the big moment, that you have the most important part of the game, and he taps you on the back and he almost rubs your back. He gives you a back rub and says, you're going well, Brian. Oh, it's special. And he just, he's sort of weird, but he's great because he's so encouraging. I loved working with Bruce because he knew when you needed a dash of confidence, and he knew when to inject that into you. And he knew when to laugh, and he also knew when to pull you up and say, hey, don't reckon you should go there. Let's go in a different direction. And he was probably, in the end, the best hands-on coach while we were actually doing the job. This guy is one of the best commentators in the world. He's not the best commentator in Australia. He's one of the best commentators in the world. And, to hear him when he goes to the Olympic Games and you hear him at the races and all of that sort of stuff, he's bloody amazing. His knowledge is incredible of stuff. He will arrive at a game of footy, McAvaney. He will arrive having done a week's worth of homework, all handwritten, nothing done on a computer, all handwritten. He cuts articles out of the paper and sticks them in the book, and he opens it up and it's this, thesaurus of information. Absolutely incredible. But he will have maybe 2,000 pieces of information about the game you're doing. Now, I arrive with about 6 pieces of information, right? Because he's different to me. He's information-based. I'm emotion-based in what I call. But the thing that most amazes me about the 2,000 pieces of information that he brings along, all handwritten and pasted, is that he might only use 15 or 20 of them, and he's prepared to throw out the rest. So all that toiling during the week, he's prepared to throw that away and not use it just because he wants to get the bits that fit the moment. And I think a lot of commentators today do that homework and they try and ram the 2,000 pieces down your throat. And it annoys me. But everyone is different. Some people need information. If I'm calling with an information-based caller, then I don't want to be supplying information. I just want to be supplying raw emotion that goes with the game. That's where I feel I do my best work.
I found that, just on personally, I was thinking about how I would prepare for a show and just knowing what to say and where I want to take it. But then when the conversation flows, I find that's when I'm in my best.
Yeah.
Not even looking at the notes.
Yeah.
It's just in there. With Bruce, what's a memory that sticks out to you the most? Is there a part when you were just fuck me, I can't believe this, this is incredible? Is there a few times sitting in the box next to him, you're like, this is special? Well,
from a generosity point of view, I think the moment that sticks out most in my mind was when Richmond were about to win their first premiership since 1980 in 2017. And as a commentator, you call about 30 or 40 seconds each and then you tap the guy on the shoulder and it's his turn. Well, we're coming towards the end of the 2017 grand final and it was obvious that Richmond were going to win. McAvaney, it was about a minute to go in the game, McAvaney's calling. And I'm thinking, shit, if he's calling now and we do 30 or 40, I'm going to be calling the last 20 seconds. And that's what every commentator's probably dream is, to want to call the last 20 seconds of the grand final, because that's the part that's the part that stays forever. Yeah. In 30 years' time, when they show Richmond winning that premiership, it'll be the final siren and just that sentence that goes with Richmond winning. And I thought, shit, I don't know how to describe Richmond's 30 years of bloody being in the doldrums. So I quickly hit the button down to the truck, the broadcast truck down underneath the car park, and I said to our guy, or Bruce's guy actually, Josh Kay, he's a wonderful person, best stats man I've ever met, got an incredible memory. I said to Josh, look, I don't know how I'm going to describe Richmond's last 30 years, and they're going to win today. And he just as quick as a flash, he's blurted out this line that just perfectly summed it up. I can't remember exactly what the line was, but he blurted out this line, and so I went with that line because you only have 10 seconds once the siren goes to sum it up, and then you've got to be quiet and let the emotion take over and let the pictures tell the story. And so that was probably the moment that I remember most, I would have thought. It was such a simple line. But when you're commentating a game, nothing comes simply, And so that was, you always need help. You'd be surprised how much of the information through a commentator at that level comes via the truck.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people sitting in the truck, of which about 4 or 5 people can communicate with you. From the pictures, the director will say, hey, Brian, I'm getting a picture of Gillon McLaughlin. And so he gives you that warning knowing that picture's coming. So you then have, 5 or 6 words to tell the people about Gill or what he's doing there or who he is, or could be an actor. I think we had Damien Lillard the other night on, and we knew that was coming about 5 seconds before it came. And so you just say, well, who's he play for? Portland Trailblazers, bang, so you're just prepared.
I think that's one thing that, like, the general public and even myself wouldn't know how much work actually goes into calling a game. Like the team, the roles. So you've got 2 callers, you've got the supports. Like, how are these meetings taking place? Is there specific roles, or is it just commentating with the team over time? You work out those sort of.
You work it out to a certain degree, but there is. I'm going to go home today for tonight's game, and I'll spend a good day having a look at that and know my stuff, particularly with the stuff like roaming. This stuff that we do after the game, walking in the rooms, and number one, when you call everyone's surnames. So Buckley gets the ball and heads up to the half-forward flank, gives it over the top to Hurd gives it to Danaher. You never mention their Christian names. Yeah. So all of a sudden you're down in the rooms and you're going, well, there's Buckley. What the hell is his Christian name? I can't go up to him and say, hey, Buckley, kicked 3 today, well done, mate. And so you've got to go through all these Christian names. And, that we had a new one last night. What was it? I don't know, whoever it was, all these new names and that, and it's bloody. And I'm walking up to players often, and I'm walking and I'm looking at you now, and I'm thinking, I don't know who you are, but because your jumper's off, and I don't, and people in my ears are saying, that's Dylan Buckley. Yeah. He kicked 3 today, Brian. Right? So there's all this sort of information. I remember the day I went into St Kilda rooms, and David Armitage was injured, and he was dressed in a suit, and he'd done his hamstring a couple of weeks before, and I'm walking around the rooms, and I go up to him and say, how'd you enjoy the game? Great win today with the boys. When will you be back? He said, I'll be back next week. And I said, you must have enjoyed the footy. And he had 3 guys in suits standing next to him, all in St Kilda ties, obviously officials of the club. And I later found out they were directors of his football club, and he'd spent all day at the footy with them. And I said, well, introduce us to your 3 mates. He didn't know their names, right?
Oh, no.
And I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, I have embarrassed this guy on national TV. So you've got to be careful with stuff like that. And then there's people in the room. So we go and interview the crowd or the parents or supporters who get in the rooms. You've got to make sure they want to be on TV. And that's a hard thing to do when you don't have a chance to ask them. And there's no producer working in front of me to say, hey, would you like to come on? So there's all these things. And then there's officials, do I know the name of the chairman? Do you know the names of the chairmen of the teams playing tonight? Do you know the CEOs? Because they're likely to be there. Do you know the name of the doctor? Just in case you may not get to interview him, but you may see him over there's Dr. Greg Hickey from the Richmond Football Club. Have a look at him, he's looking at blah, blah, blah. So you need to know the name of all these ancillary people as well as the players. And last week on the segment after the game, we went for 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes of me talking to myself, basically, on national TV. And you've got to fill that with something that matters. And it's not scary at the time, but after I come back and think, Jesus, what happens if I didn't know his name? Or what happens if Toby Namkervis says no to an interview? And we really like it. I like it when people say no. They haven't said no very often, but to me, that really interests me because the person at home would be thinking, what a dickhead that guy is. He couldn't give him 30 seconds. I remember Joe Danaher. I was pushing into this room, and the door was slightly ajar, and I could see Joe in there sitting on the floor, and I just put my head in the door, and he slammed the door on me, right? I thought, you arsehole, Joe. I just wanted to say hello, mate, and it's no big deal. So, and this is great, because I watch Martin Brundle in the F1s these days do the grid walk about 10 minutes before these jets take off. And I watch him walk down pit lane. He's got a cameraman that can't keep up. He goes up to Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise says, "Piss off, mate, I'm not talking to you." Then he goes to the head of Ferrari, who can't speak English, and so he can't speak. Then he goes over to some bird over here and says, she's an actor, and she doesn't want to talk because she's, her hairs might get messed up or something. And then he walks down the grid, and you've watched 10 minutes of it. He hasn't interviewed one person. He's had 35 knockbacks, and you go, why am I still watching this? Why? Because the pictures tell the story about the people, whether he interviewed them or not. You are sitting at home, you are making your mind up about whether Tom Cruise is a good guy. Couldn't he have given him 10 seconds, And that is what's so compelling about it. And I look forward to the day that multiple players say no to me, because that is going to be fantastic.
Who have you enjoyed the most? Is there a player that you love interviewing?
I guess the ones that get it, like Joel Selwood, Tom Hawkins, these sort of guys, they sort of get it, But the rawness of the young players you can't beat, because they're absolutely bedazzled by this big light comes up and it bores a hole in their head, and and I'm thinking, Jesus, and I'm thinking, this kid just doesn't know what to say. And then mum's over there, and they're a bit embarrassed about mum and dad being over there in the cage, and mum's yelling out, "Good on you, son!" And all the other teammates are looking, going, "Christ!" Or they're looking at mum, going, "She's a good sort," It's.
I must say the best one I've ever seen was when you went into, I think it was the Essendon rooms, and did the property steward, and he was eating the sandwich.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit careful, because some of them aren't that media savvy.
Yep.
And it's just good, and whether they can talk or not, in that case, or whether they're eating, it's sometimes it's just a glance, or it's just the picture of the person that's important. I don't pretend that what I'm going to ask them is groundbreaking, because it's not. In fact, no one would even listen to the question. I think people at that stage have had enough of us talking, and they're just interested for a bit of a walking around.
Yeah.
And that's all we're trying to do. So, I don't understand why clubs are scared of this. We're just going for a walk around, and we're just showing the people the pictures of what happens in these rooms. And really that's all about it. We say to these clubs, hey, you can own this 15 minutes of TV. You tell us who you want us to talk to. I'm sick of trying to get interviews out of you guys, because you're so tight and you don't want any of your players to be interviewed, because the big tough coaches are saying, don't do any media, don't go down media street. Well, all these kids can handle it. They're all bloody good at it. So yeah, it's a tough gig, and out of all the things I do, it's the one thing that worries me the most. Lots of things can go wrong. You are on national live TV, and people love to be able to say you've done a shit-house job.
Yeah. Do you follow social media?
I do. I'm on Insta and Twitter. I'm not a big lover of Twitter, but I do like Insta.
Yeah.
It's a much more positive environment.
Yeah.
I found that I couldn't handle the negative stuff.
Twitter sucks.
And I just don't need the negative stuff.
The reason Twitter is so harsh, and it's the same as TikTok with the algorithm of it, like if you post, even people that don't follow you will see those things. So it goes into a feed. If you like footy, you'll see BT's tweets, because then 7FL will retweet it. And you attract people that don't necessarily want to see your stuff. That's why they comment on it.
Yeah.
But with Instagram, it's like you only really see it if you follow the person.
Yeah, right.
So it's such a better platform to be on.
Yeah. No, I don't mind that platform. I don't do a lot of it. The podcast thing is, yourself and Gorringe and, Tommy Sheridan and all these other guys. I will listen to the people that appeal to me. When I hear who is being advertised coming on, I will listen to that. Who's the guy, the famous guy in the US that does a brilliant job, linked to the... Who is it?
Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Like, some of the stuff that he does is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. What have you listened to from him?
I've listened to many things. Probably the mind. He had this
sleep one?
He had this mind coach. Yeah, he's talking about that sort of stuff. And I thought he was absolutely fantastic. But some of the guests he gets from behind the scenes are absolutely incredible.
That's what I love. I love the incredible stories that he gets. Like,
even talking about the planet, all the stuff talking about the planet and that sort of thing. And, he's amazing.
We had Richard Harris, who went to Thailand and did the caves. He got the 14 soccer guys out of the cave. And just sitting back and hearing that story for a year and a half is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just on your career, I know you don't like talking about yourself too much, but your favourite players to call, I love
players that that can lose the game off their own boot and can win the game off their own boot.
Name it. Who?
Oh, well, so look, if I went back to Leon Davis,
Yep.
I would say Leon is very capable of losing games for you.
Yep.
But he's really capable of winning the odd game, and that odd game is enough for me to stay attracted to everything he does. Jake Stringer, is another one that will win or lose the game off his boot. He certainly appeals to me. So these guys with that little bit of X factor, that little bit of Orazio Fantasia would be another one. They can just cut a game open, or they can play really bad and look terrible, and everyone is giving them an absolute earful because they've played poorly. Well, to me, those are the guys that I go to the footy to watch. I don't go to the footy to watch a midfielder get 30 every week, and at the end of the game you say, oh, you had 30 today. Oh, there's nothing more boring than that guy. So if you're that guy out there,
Don't do
do
that.
something else.
Yeah,
but, these guys like, Stringer, just powerful, just Leon Davis, just dazzling sort of skills.
Like Toby?
Toby Green, unbelievable to watch, just an absolute force of just commitment and heaviness, and every time he smashes into you, it's looked like he's breaking the rules, but he does it so well, and he's great to watch. So these guys with that X factor, to me, are really good. I'm also interested in a little bit in guys like maybe someone like Tom Hawkins, Jack Rewalt to a certain degree. Interested in those guys because they played in a position that I was in, and how they kick the footy and that sort of thing. But no, it's probably more a personality-based thing.
You mentioned like Orazio and Boy Oh Boy, like these sort of nuances that you come up with and you go in your commentary. How much is that is pre-planned versus how much just comes up when you're in your
Well, none
zone?
of it.
None
Absolutely,
of it.
I can say honestly and openly here that I've never gone to a game saying, I'm going to say this about that player.
Yeah.
I have never, ever done that. Other than facts about that player, I've never gone with a predetermined process. I remember on the Jake Stringer thing, I remember we were halfway through the game, and I pressed the button to the intercom to my producer, and I said, this guy, there's something about this guy that I really like. We've got to get this guy a nickname. And someone in the truck yelled out the name. I didn't think of the name. Someone in the truck come back 30 seconds later and said, package, or I can't remember what the first words were. Anyway, so that was done by someone in the truck.
Yeah.
And that's how these things happen. I remember Leon Davis, I remember calling a game of footy on radio with Eddie Maguire, and it was Neon Leon. And then we took that a step further. But so these things, they really do just happen. They don't happen very often. And then when everyone jumps on board and likes it and is talking about it, it's time for you to jump off.
Yeah. You do it before it gets old.
Yeah, do it before it gets old. Move on to the next thing. Because if you get caught in the rut of going down the same old track of boy oh boy, Orazio Fantasia, if you going down that track, years later, you are in trouble. You have got to, in this world, continue to evolve, and especially in the cut and thrust of the footy industry, you've got to evolve and be relevant in every year that goes by. Otherwise, particularly when you get to my age, people are looking at you as becoming an old dinosaur. I know you're looking at me now thinking, you are an old dinosaur.
No, not at all. I couldn't agree more. I've had that same thing with the show myself. It's like if we continue to just do young footballers every week, they've got the same fucking stories. Like it's very hard to have diversity in that. So I couldn't agree more. Favourite games that you've been a part of? Is there
Just
anything
close
stand
games.
out?
I get so much criticism. People, I always laugh when people say, "Oh, you're barracking for the other team." Thinking, I don't give a shit about the other team. It's bloody Carlton. Who gives a crap about Carlton? No, I am as a commentator barracking for the team that's coming second.
Yeah.
If you're coming second in my game, then I need you to get the hell moving along, because I, as a commentator, want a close finish. And I know you at home watching on TV or listening on the radio want a close finish as well. So all I hope is that it's close. So if that's barracking, yes, then I'm barracking. So for me, that's all I hope to get out of a game is a close finish. And having done this for so long now, over 30 years, I'm not a Collingwood or Richmond person, because I've done so many games, Dylan. I do 3 to 4 live games of footy every weekend. So it is. I am seeing so much footy that I really don't care who wins. I just want a good game.
Yeah.
That's all I hope for.
What are you thinking about footy at the moment? Is it exciting?
Probably not as exciting as it should be right now. It's just lacking. Number one, there are not enough good teams in the I'm not even sure that Melbourne are like an absolute brilliant team at the moment. They're acting like it, and when I see them in press conference, I laugh at all the shit that comes out of their mouth at the moment. But I'm thinking, mate, you know Richmond, you know Hawthorn, you know Geelong yet. You've won one, and, it's a quiet time in footy at the moment. I see Danaher's back for Brisbane this weekend, so all of a sudden McStay, Danaher and Hipwood all back playing footy. So in 4 weeks they're going to be there. I think they're going to be the strong team, but there's not enough of them. So beyond Brisbane and Melbourne, there's not much else. And we were talking just before off air about the stars. The stars that we've known over the last decade are on the.
They're getting older. Yeah.
They're getting older. Dusty and
the most exciting player is still Buddy Franklin. He's only 35 years old.
And Buddy, we're still talking about these guys. We're not talking about the next young. Well, I did see a guy like Shay Bolton is
he's unbelievable.
He'll win the best and fairest at Richmond this year without any doubt if Dion Prestia doesn't misses a few games. But he is better than Dusty right now. He is better. He is more consistent. He's got all the tricks that Dusty's got, and he looks like he gets involved in a lot of the big moments that Dusty has been famous for as well. I love Shay Bolton. I think he is unbelievably and incredibly, I think people are probably still underrating him. He is. I'm sure the people involved in the footy industry aren't, but I think the supporters are underrating how good this kid is.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I think he's the silkiest player in the AFL by far.
But name another one. There are not really many.
Okay, the thing about Shay that really, he's so long-limbed. Like for his size, I think he's like 183, but his arms, his reach and his legs, he's very just elusive. I can't really name, besides Isaac Heaney was playing really, really well at the start of the year.
Yeah, interesting player.
Lachie Neale's playing some good footy.
Yeah, Lockie's a great player. I won't say.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to. It really is hard to think of someone who's dominating the game at the moment.
And it is those players, that we're trying to, Martin and Buddy and these guys that bring people through the gates, and we really go to watch them. We're happy for our team to win, but we really want to see something incredible. And I think the game has become so professional, and the coaches have become so good that they've got everyone playing so consistently and roles that they just fill their role every week, and we become attuned to that. And so therefore we don't see these spectacular outbursts of players because, it is a little bit like basketball. A lot of these guys in teams today are playing roles rather than just being told to go out and get the footy as many times as you can.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to our recruiting chat earlier. You get the most talented players in the game, and then you tell them to stand and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So there's got to be 3 or 4, as much as I hated it when I was playing because I was never one of them, that just have a license to do whatever they want.
So when does a coach give the player a license? How good do you have to be for the coach to say there are no restrictions on you, what you do?
Well, to be honest, I always found that when I was playing, I don't think that ever things are really given out. Well, not publicly anyway, in front of the team. But the best players are the ones that know the roles, but they don't care, and they back themselves in anyway. So someone like, for example, Lachie Whitfield and Sam Doherty, these sort of guys, like, no matter what happens on the field, no matter what they're told, they do their thing.
Yep.
And they back themselves in.
Yep.
Like, you can be like, don't hit a 45, don't do this, we want to play down the line. And Sam Doherty and Lachie Whitfield, if there's something there, they just play the game and they're going to absolutely rip it. If they get sprayed, they don't care, they do it again. So I think it actually comes down to the player. They've got to back themselves in a bit more to do these things. I think the best players just back themselves in. Like Dusty Martin, he's not going to run back and defend. He'll just fucking run forward and kick a goal. Like, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But we are so well drilled now.
Yeah,
they are.
Well coached, well drilled, as you say. Yeah. It's hard to be different. Everyone's the same.
Yeah, you got to be different. BT versus Brian Taylor. Perception versus reality. From what we see on screen and what we hear, and I'm not just saying this to you now, I've said it on podcasts a lot on this club, you are easily my favourite commentator. Like, I do say that. You excite the game. I love listening to you call. I love it when you get excited because I'm on emotion too. I don't want to hear about just stupid shit all the time. I don't really care about stats that much. I just love close games. I love it going. But how similar is how you are on screen versus what you are in in just when you're by yourself? With
I
your
know
family?
one thing for sure. When I get home and I arrive home from a weekend of footy and my wife says, who won today? My immediate response is, who played?
Yeah.
What game was I at? You tell me. Because I have moved on to the next round very, very quickly. So my family often say to me, we were just watching you on TV. You've just walked in the front door, but you are two different people. Like, who the hell are you when you walk in? Are you that guy there, or are you this guy here, our dad, or are you the husband, or, are you the guy that goes out and does the rock wall? Who the fuck are you? Like, it's weird. And
Because Brian, from reports, is a Hansel-loving...
Yes, I'm a dog-loving thing. I've got a little dog called Hansel. So that's what I care about most, other than my family. Hansel is probably part of the family. He's a bloody... I could just kiss him all day. He's a ripper, and I'm very happy to clean up his shit. It doesn't worry me at all. It's just like dog shit. Who wants to do that? But I do. I love it. And I follow him around with a tray, or you're almost props in it. So I love the dog, and I'm a shed man.
Yeah,
so,
you've got a great shed.
Yeah, I love being in my shed.
It's bigger than Bunnings.
Yeah, it's good, and I just feel like I just get away and walk down there, and Tanya will say to me, "Where are you going?" I say, "I'm just going down the shed to do a job," but really, I'm just going down there for my quiet time.
Yeah,
I need the time to myself. And I might just fiddle with something and get nowhere, or I might actually achieve something. But I'm heading down there because that's what I really enjoy. And I could go down there for 6 hours, and it feels like an hour I'm there.
What do you make? Like, you're actually a handyman? Can you use the tools?
I can do anything. I mean, I've made wooden tables out of secondhand, all that sort of stuff. I'm also love the metal side of things as well. So, and just repairing stuff that's broken around the place, and probably cultivating the gardens and lawns and driveways and all that sort of stuff. I do most jobs myself, regardless of how big they are. Being an ex-tradie as well sort of helps having some idea about most things. So just love it. I just sit there. Sometimes I just go down there, put the glasses on and just read the paper, or just have the radio on in the background, or just sometimes I just sit there and do nothing. It's fantastic. The silence. Hansel, he just sits there next to me. He doesn't move, and it's bloody brilliant. I don't have anything to do. I have very little to do with football when I'm not at the football.
Yeah,
and I think I need to do that. I need to refresh my brain and get out of the footy world. And I used to think it was important to consume and listen and read and watch everything that was footy, and I quickly learnt that through McAvaney that it's best not to be influenced by others. It's best to go to the footy with your opinion, not one you've heard on the radio in the week leading up or read in the newspaper. Go with your opinions. And that sometimes can leave you in a situation where you're vulnerable because you don't necessarily know what's happened with the chat on that and you haven't followed it. But I think you do go there with freshness and different ideas about how you've seen something that's happened during the week.
Yeah. Yeah, big fan of switching off. I don't really watch any footy whatsoever at the moment, especially. Yep. I love what you said about fixing up stuff and like wanting to get on hands. My biggest goal of 2022 and 2023 is to actually fucking learn how to do some things. Like growing up in the city.
Have you got any skill at all?
I have literally zero skill, like of anything. I tried to renovate my own house like a few years ago.
Well, that's a big job. I mean, perhaps you should make a toy or something first.
It actually ended up costing me more because I fucked it all up and had to get someone to come and fix it. I was driving home the other day from Swan Hill. My oil light popped on. Went into the station to get the oil. I was like, I actually don't know how to fucking put the oil in. I had to get the girl from the counter to come out and do it for me.
You are.
It's embarrassing.
You are a bit basic.
Yeah, I am. I definitely am. I need to get into it. Down at Lawn, though, you're pretty much the mayor of Lawn. Everyone is... Well,
Mick Turner.
Mick Turner and yourself. But I've heard that when you're down there on your paddleboard, you want to get out of the way. You're mowing people down.
Well, the surf area at Lawn's quite narrow.
Yeah.
The takeoff point at Lawn Point is like the size of a very small tent.
Yeah.
It's not big. And there's 50 guys all looking for the same wave, all looking to get that spot at the same time.
It's competitive.
And they're all, number one, they can all surf, so they're good. And number two, they're on short little pissy boards that, they can manoeuvre and steer. I am on a 11-foot,
Fiberglass?
5-inch thick fiberglass yacht that doesn't even wobble. And when it feels the push of a wave, it just goes straight.
Yeah.
And what the surfers don't understand is once I'm on, I can't turn. And so if you're in front of me trying to, what is it called, fishtail you or something, they in front of you,
duck dive?
There's some term they use where they try to get the wave in front of you. Well, I end up on their backs. My skeg of my board is getting very close to their ass because I've gone over the top of them and I'm about to split them in two. And so some guys have learnt to stay out of the way once I'm on, which gives me a clear path. Yeah. But the Christmas holiday makers don't know me. And I do remember one day at Lawn Point, and Mick Turner had told me, he said, look, always the best way to, if you're having an argument, because I'm amazed at how aggressive surfing is.
I had to stop doing it because it's not actually relaxing for me. It's actually fucking scary
out
there.
It's a fight every time you go out there. And I've gone out there, I'm like you, I've gone out there to just clear my head because it is a sport where you think about nothing else other than what you're doing at the time. Because it requires that concentration. But, there was this guy out there who's a bloody lawyer or something, and he was yelling at me and telling me to F off and, get out of the way. Who do you think you are here with a stand-up paddleboard? This is blah, 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 blah. And anyway, he comes up to me and he starts, yelling at me and carrying on. So I jump off my board and he's off his board. And Mick Turner has always said to me, he said, just grab them in a bear hug, go down with them in the bear hug, and when they come up, go down again quickly. So you're ready for the two downers.
Yeah.
They're only ready for one, right? And so you go down with them, and then you go down again, and they'll come up, and then just go bang, just punch them right in the nose, and they will have no response because they've got no air left and they've got nothing. And I did do this once to this guy down there, and then you wouldn't believe it. I was at my dentist's. About 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in the chair having a filling, and the guy's going with the drill, and the bloody guy walks in from the side chair, and he's the accountant of my dentist, and it's the guy I punched in the nose down at the Lawn Point. So,
did you remember you?
He remembered me absolutely, and I remembered him as well because I know him reasonably well. So that was a bit. But it's just so aggressive surfing.
It's so aggressive.
So aggressive, but it's so addictive because you can just feel yourself improve each time you catch a wave.
Yeah, I found that with golf now. Golf's my thing.
Yeah, well, golf was my thing. I played golf 4 or 5 times a week.
Really? What were you playing off?
Well, I was playing off 12 in the end at Greenacres, but I just found to play off 12 and be competitive at 12, you had to play three or 4 times a week. And then we had kids and they get in the way and they got to go to sport. So you lose the time because it's a very selfish sport and you must be a very selfish guy because you're down there playing golf every day. It's 6 hours down the drain every time you go. But I loved golf and boy, is that a challenge. And you feel yourself getting marginally better. You have a few lulls.
I've gone backwards at the moment.
Yeah,
but
you do that.
It's one of the biggest testing.
Yeah.
And it is purely, as much as you want to win when you play, it's the biggest test against yourself I've ever played, ever.
Look, if you're not going well and you're in a bit of a lull, just cheat.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Just get in the bushes
I'm
and
at La
tee it
Trobe,
up.
which is in the same
across the river.
Yeah, across the river. Yeah.
Nice little golf course, La Trobe.
Yeah, good. It's a bit underwater at the moment. The Office.
Yes, the office down at Lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the office, for those people that don't know, we have a little section of grass on the beach at Lawn, and it's under this very nice cool tree. And we set up our chairs there over the Christmas period for about 6 or 8 weeks. And we meet, a group of us meet there. So Mick Turner, the former Geelong captain.
Falcons,
Rick Barham, the former wingman at Collingwood.
Jackson Barham's dad.
Jackson Barham's dad. He will meet there as well, and a couple of other mates, and Steve Peary and a few others. And, we have a couple of spare chairs. And the rule is that if you're in the office, and I might be there, get there about 8 in the morning and set up the chairs before anyone arrives. I don't know why we do that, but we do. And, we're sitting there and Mick and I are talking to each other. And sometimes we'll go there and not talk to each other. And it's just a day off talk. So when someone comes up and they want to talk, they get the old, we don't want to talk today. But if someone arrives that you're not prepared to introduce to me. So if Mick's got a friend arriving and he's got to make the decision, if I introduce him to Brian, I can bring him in front of the chairs and we can invite him to sit down. But if he takes him to the back of the chairs, this is a non-introductory moment.
Oh, no.
This is move this fucking guy on. I do not want to talk to him. So this is what we've got sorted out. And so that's why it becomes interesting. But we've had trouble with the local council because we leave our chairs padlocked to the tree each night. So we don't have to go to the trouble of taking them down every day. And they keep coming and cutting the padlocks and claiming the chairs. So we have to go and bail our chairs out of the local council office every second day because of this. But if you are ever walking past us and you're not invited to the front of the chairs, please continue on as quickly as you can. So this is part of the thing. And people now know that we're not rude, but it's our time. We don't necessarily have to be talking
Is
to
it
every
just
person
like
that comes.
friend, just a catch-up club like you and the boys?
It's just friends getting down the beach. I love watching, a group of people one day hired these kayaks right next to us, and there were 6 kayaks, and you could tell they'd never been in a kayak before. And we're watching them from the start of them rolling up in the Range Rover to having weird-looking clothes on that don't resemble anything like bathers, but they're going to go out in the water anyway. And then they hire them, and they're asking questions like, do these tip over? And you're going, well, most kayaks do. Yeah. But they don't seem to know that. And then put them in the water, and we noticed that none of them put the bung in. None of them put the bung in for the canoes. And so they all went out. There were 6 of them. And they went out, and they were out about 100 metres, not that far, but none of them could swim. They all had life jackets on. And they all went out and they all filled up at the same time, and they're all sinking at the same time. These 6 kayaks about 100 metres offshore. And it was absolutely hilarious until we realised that none of them could swim. So then everyone en masse has gone out to save them. Mick and I, we're still sitting down at this stage and thinking they've got their life jackets on, they'll be okay. So, and just watching people, the same people at places like Lorne and Shum, Portsea and Sorrento and all these other beaches, Wye River, they go to the same place every year and they sit on the same bit of beach. And it's fascinating to see the growth in their kids or the growth in their body or whatever it is, or the change in husband and wife. Often they switch over and they've got someone new that they bring along. And to watch all of this over for us, it's been about 20 years, is amazing. And to see their kids grow from a 2-year-old kid that was throwing sand in your face a few years back to this, gun surfer or good-looking guy or girl or whatever it is amazing. So we watch that. We can sit there and not say a word to each other, but know exactly what each other is thinking at the time. It is amazing. We'll see someone walk past and I'll look at Mick and go, just a nod, and that's all it is. And we both are thinking exactly the same thing. And we do pull a lot of people to pieces, which we shouldn't, because that's unfair, but we do keep it very private.
I'm just nervous the next time I'm down at Lawn. Would I be coming to the back?
No, well, look, if you just walk past, number one, you will be analysed no matter what. Yeah. But if you come past, we could probably, I don't know whether you're a sit-down guest, but you can come to the front and we'll chat for a minute.
Who's someone just off the top of your head that has had a sit-down?
Oh, there's been many people that have had sit-downs. Brian Cook's come past, the CEO.
So you got to be a big dog.
No, you don't have to be a big knob. I occasionally welcome my wife to sit down. Yeah. She comes occasionally. So there've been all sorts of people through those seats. Mick knows the Cotton On people very well from down there. So, we welcome them in. But there's all sorts of backpackers, a lot of backpackers around that we take we take a liking to one or two, either an Argentinian or a Brazilian backpacker, and they will come down and join us, and we'll sit there for an hour and talk to them. Won't have a clue what they've said, but we eventually tell them to move on. But so it's interesting, and Ricky Barham's quite a smart guy. He sort of walks quickly past the back of our chairs with his dog as if he's going on a morning walk and he can't stop because, his time will be affected or something. So he walks very, very... Some people walk very quickly so they don't get caught in the net.
Oh, my God, that's fantastic. I have to
it's a people processing plant.
Yeah, okay.
That we have, and it's interesting. We know everything about everyone.
Well, I'm just
that's
excited to see what from this podcast, what reception you get now when people see you down there if they've heard it. That's what I'm nervous about for you.
Yeah, look, it's great. You know, one interesting thing that we do down there is we're not really connected to the footy club down there, the local footy club, but we have this. We saw all these people on the beach, and we thought, how can we extract money out of these people? They've got nothing to do with lawn other than they go there for a holiday. And how can we get that money out of them and give it to the local footy club and netball club? And so we organised this function down there that we basically dragged anyone that had any money off the beach, made them come to this function because we'd seen them over the years. We knew everyone there, and we got them to come along this function, and they were incredibly generous in their support. And, you know, raising $100,000 a year, basically out of these people. So you're not drawing, because the thing with local communities and local sporting clubs is the same people get hit all the time. You know, the ice cream shop gets hit for $500 a year. You know, then they've got to go to the barbecue and buy 10. You know, so we wanted to give the people of Lorne, that is the residents of Lorne, a rest. Let's get the money out of these people that aren't normally here, contribute to what they do, and therefore the local people in the club can go to the club knowing that they can buy a raffle ticket because they're not going to be hit up for a $300 seat at this function. So it's something that we've enjoyed doing, and that came about by us sitting on the beach and one day going, hey, why don't we do this? We could get that guy over there. Him and his wife would love to come. He'd love to come. He's got some money there. He owns this, so he'll donate. And it was really good.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So good. What's next for BT? What's goals? Anything? What do you want to achieve? Like, you've done a lot.
I want to achieve the perfect game of football, of which I've never done. I've never done as a caller.
So what do you mean by, like, what, no mistakes?
Well, not make a mistake. So identification for a start, you know, hard. I long for the day that I don't make an identification error.
It's funny you say that. I'm not saying, I actually really enjoy that because I think it humanises the game as well. Sometimes when you're listening and it's a bit of a blur, like it actually breaks up the game and makes it fun.
Yeah, getting
I
them
love
wrong.
it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it happens. I'll give you a bit of an idea of where you can get to. So McAvaney, I reckon, watched him very closely, and I reckon he would make maybe one identification error every 3 weeks. It's not much. He's pretty bloody good to get to that level. I reckon I make 3 or 4 a game, and so to get to the McAvaney level is a really hard thing to do. And that's what I look forward to one day, being able to say that I absolutely nailed every piece of information today. I didn't get a player wrong today. I'm not sure whether that day will ever come. It's harder to do than you think. Because some days you think you're going well and you put your binoculars down and someone over the other side of the ground gets it and you don't even know you've made the mistake until you watch it back. By the way, I've never watched any games back, but yeah.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I get you strive for it. But
do you think the players get pissed off when
I don't think anyone cares at all.
What do you think when they're sitting there and they're, you know...
Just because people are loudest, the loudest people doesn't mean it's like the majority.
Yeah.
You know, the minority is the loudest.
I've always wondered what the players think that when they go to review a game, do you
You don't listen with vision.
You don't listen.
Never.
It's just vision, is it?
Just vision.
Really?
You never ever listen to it.
Okay.
Unless I do remember once actually that we did listen to the vision because we were getting beat by like 90 points and they said something and they played it out. Like it must have been, I think we'd lost, 10 in a row or something, and they put the vision, they just summed up saying, this is disgusting. That was the only time we listened to the vision. Because I don't watch, like when I was playing, I never watched footy back, never listened to any calls.
Yeah, I don't
the only time you hear it is when you watch the highlights.
Yep. Yeah.
So players, don't stress on that. And I was going to say, with the people don't want you to be Bruce McAvaney.
No, probably not.
Like, you're not Bruce,
point.
you're BT.
Yeah.
So just like...
So my life, what you're saying to me is my life is full of mistakes.
Exactly.
So
it's
keep
full
going.
Of that. It's full of kissing your dog on the lips. Really, that's your life.
Yeah, that's probably my life.
Awesome. Hey mate, honestly, incredible to get you on today. I really, really do appreciate it. Love your work. And just can't thank you enough for your time.
Good on you, Dyl. Appreciate being asked to come on and speak to young people. It's like speaking to my kids all over again.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, mate.